Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Ki Teitze, the sixth portion in Sefer Devarim, beginning in chapter 21 and verse 10. Parashat Ki Teitze contains more commandments than any other portion, a total of 74 mitzvot relating to various areas of life. Some relate to everyday situations, while others are performed more rarely. Some are readily understood, while the reasoning for others is more elusive. So open up your heart. When we are able to comprehend the rationale behind God's commandments, it's only natural that one's motivation to fulfill them can be greater. But the truth is, the Torah teaches us that we can never truly understand the significance of the commandments. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says Hashem in Isaiah 55:8. Human intellect is limited, and we can never fully fathom the depth of God's intention. So open up your heart in the deepest way, because this is an important principle of Torah. Whatever reasons we ascribe for any particular commandment, which seem to provide us with an explanation on a moral or ethical or symbolic or practical level, we need to remember at the same time that that's only our rationale according to our understanding. It may be a good one, it may make sense, but it's far from being the whole picture. And the truth is, it's far preferable for a person to observe Hashem's commandments simply because He told us to keep them, and not because we understand their rationale or appreciate their purpose. We don't condition our acceptance of our mission to listen to Hashem upon our ability to understand. If that were the case, we would handpick the commandments and only accept those that appeal to us. Actually, some people do that today. But a person who truly believes in Hashem will seek to perform the commandments of his Creator because his Creator commanded them, not because the individual determines that it makes perfect sense. It was precisely for Israel's unprecedented collective display of this quality of faith that the nation was praised at the Sinai revelation when they received God's commandments and they entered into His covenant with the response recorded in Exodus chapter 24 and verse 7. Everything that Hashem has said, na'aseh v'nishma, literally translated as we will do and we will obey. The meaning of this statement is that the Israelites agreed to perform the mitzvot even before hearing what they entail. First and foremost, na'aseh, we will do. And afterwards, nishma, we will hear. We will attempt to understand. But we accept upon ourselves the responsibility of performing the commandments because you told us to, regardless of whether or not we comprehend their meaning. One of the unusual commandments in this week's portion is the commandment to send away the mother bird, as we learn in chapter 22 and verse 6. If a bird's nest happens to be before you on the road, or on any tree or on the ground, young birds or eggs, and the mother is roosting on the young birds or on the eggs, you shall not take the mother with the young. You shall surely send away the mother and take the young for yourself, so that it will be good for you and you will prolong your days. The essence of this mitzvah is that if we find a bird's nest with chicks or eggs in it, and the mother is roosting over them, we are forbidden from taking the eggs or chicks from the mother's presence. And likewise, we are forbidden from taking the bird together with the eggs or chicks. Rather, one who wants to take the eggs or chicks must first shoo away the mother, and only afterwards may take them for himself. And as is the way with all the divine commandments, there are many details that are clarified by our sages as taught by Moshe. For example, since the verse uses the word sipur, as opposed to the more general oaf, this specifically refers to a clean species. And also, since the verse describes a scenario of encountering this nest, it doesn't apply to one's own homegrown birds, which are already in its position. And there are many other details as to the manner in which the mother bird is sent off and how exactly this commandment is to be fulfilled. A deeper study reveals that this concept of sending away the mother bird conveys vast secrets. And while on a simple level it may seem perplexing, even on a simple level, there is a message here of awesome ethical guidance. So we spoke about the concept of the rationale behind the commandments and the important idea that our main goal in fulfilling them should simply be to do the will of God, regardless of our understanding. Once that foundation has been laid, we can pursue our quest of the rationale behind the commandments, according to our admittedly limited capacity to comprehend. So we can mention several ideas regarding this particular commandment. One idea is that the act of sending the mother off and only taking her chicks once she's distanced from the nest is an action that aids in strengthening our quality of mercy. Animals instinctively care for their young and suffer when they see them slaughtered or taken away. But isn't it cruel altogether to send the bird off and separate her from her young, you may ask? Why not just keep on walking? Well, not if you're hungry, since everything was created for the sake of man. The world was created for the sake of man, and as the centerpiece of God's creation, everything revolves around him. So a hungry traveler is permitted to eat anything along his way, animal or vegetable, providing that it's kosher and that it was permitted for him to take, it was ownerless or otherwise he purchased it. He's permitted to eat the eggs, he's permitted to eat the bird. So why does the Torah differentiate here regarding a bird and her brood that he must send away the mother as opposed to all other creatures if he is in need of sustenance? Torah here seeks to educate us in developing the quality of mercy and a concern for another's feelings, even an animal, as well as to caution us to distance ourselves from cruelty. A bird continues to roost on her nest even if a person approaches, and out of her concern, she remains with her brood in the face of danger. For her own sake, to protect herself, the bird could have successfully fled, but on account of her concern for her young, she doesn't leave the nest. She doesn't abandon them despite her fear. Now, a man who would hunt and catch a bird while roosting is exploiting her motherly quality of mercy and concern for her young. And this is an act of cruelty. And Torah seeks to distance a person from this attribute. Indeed, to uproot cruelty from the heart. And perhaps in this light we can view the unusual reward of long life that Torah promises for one who sends away the mother bird, as our verse states, so that it will be good for you and you will prolong your days, because someone who makes an effort to cling to the attributes of the Holy One and is merciful towards his creatures merits good and long life. But as we said at the outset, ultimately the commandments are divine decrees. By whose definition is the quality of mercy established? We can't weigh heavenly mercy versus human mercy. And this is a discussion that relates to a person's conception of God himself. There are those who define God as love. But what happens if what's happening doesn't appear to be love according to my expectations? If God is only love, what happens when he commands me something that appears to be cruel according to my understanding? That line of thinking can lead a person to have disdain for any of the commandments which, in his limited intellect, doesn't fit in with his way of thinking. And this is always the danger of ascribing our human characteristics to God. Our obligation is to God because he commands, and we fulfill his word. So consider this. He commands us to shoo away the mother bird. And this very same Torah portion today, God also commands us to destroy the wicked nation of Amalek, including the women and children, because that same God, the God of love, tells us that Amalek must be completely obliterated from this world. So open up your heart in the very deepest way. When we define God in human terms and try to make him fit our expectations, our box, we are essentially trying to take the one who created us in his image and recreate him in our image, and that doesn't work. As Maimonides explains, the attribute of mercy is an inherent part of this mitzvah, a revelation of mercy in creation, and God implanted many commandments with mercy in order to instill this quality in man. But we are forbidden from ascribing human qualities to God, and ultimately, this commandment too is not a commandment of mercy, but something to be obeyed as a divine decree. In Tractate Berachot, the sages of the Mishnah declare as follows: if a prayer leader intones these words, the following words, "May your mercies reach us upon the wing of a bird," he should be silenced. In other words, the form of such a prayer is an obvious reference and allusion to this particular biblical commandment. And the sages deem such an expression of prayer to be improper. One reason is that that person is criticized because he's formulating his prayer because he's categorizing all of Hashem's attributes as the attribute of mercy. And as Rashi clarifies, this is not the case. He didn't give the commandments to Israel because of mercy, but rather as decrees of the king, so that they should know that they're his servants who observe all his commandments and laws and ordinances, even those that they do not understand. To understand the depth of what Rashi is saying, he is not saying that the commandment of shooing away the mother bird is not a manifestation of God's mercy and his compassion for his creations. He's merely saying that such explanations and answers should never be considered as the answer all, as the supreme explanation and rationale for the commandments, because such a line of thinking can lead a person to have disdain for any of the commandments which he, in his limited intellect, does not understand. Even if one does not understand the reason for a particular commandment, one is still obligated to perform it, not because it appeals to his sense of right and wrong, but because God commanded it. And if this is an individual's approach to his relationship and obligations to God, then he'll also perform and observe all the commandments that he doesn't understand. But a person who is labeling, categorizing all of Hashem's attributes as the attribute of mercy will find himself in a self-made quandary when confronting mitzvot in which he doesn't see this quality of mercy on his terms. But open up your heart. There's something about sending off the mother bird that seems a bit unclear to us in our study. Is this commandment only to be performed when one wants the eggs or chicks and the mother is roosting over them, so then she should be sent away so that we can take them? Or does Torah intend here that it's proper to fulfill this commandment regardless when we happen upon a bird in her nest? Which is it? So on this question, there is a divergence of thought. Many scholars maintain that the mitzvah of sending away the mother is only fulfilled when one needs the eggs or chicks and sends her away in order to take them. Otherwise, the mitzvah does not apply, and there's no purpose in sending her away and taking them. And on the contrary, one should only shoo her away if he is in need for his own sustenance. But if he had no need of it, it's forbidden to cause any animal to suffer. However, according to other important authorities, any time that one happens upon a bird roosting on its young while on his way, this divine commandment can be fulfilled by sending away the mother and taking the offspring. Just as the verse indicates, you shall surely send away the mother and take the young for yourself. So one needn't actively look for a nest in order to fulfill this, but if the opportunity comes about, then one is presented with a chance to fulfill Hashem's will. But open up your heart in the deepest way. On a deep level of the Torah's inner secrets, the sages maintain that it is proper to seek out a bird's nest in order to fulfill this commandment at least once in one's lifetime. And this is something that's very relevant to our world today, to our situation. Our holy masters explain that when we perform this commandment and send the mother away from her young, she flaps her wings and flies from place to place in anguish and cries, and the chicks cry out for their mother. And this arouses Hashem's attribute of divine mercy for his children to hasten the time of redemption. Sending off the bird is a symbolic action which awakens heavenly mercy upon us, and the bird's suffering causes her to cry out to Hashem, who in turn bestows mercy upon Israel's suffering. And Israel's suffering is the world's suffering. On that note, a midrashic tradition connects the fulfillment of this commandment with the arrival of Elijah the prophet, the harbinger of redemption. And it teaches that one who sends away the mother bird will hasten Elijah's arrival. For in our verse it's written, you shall surely send the mother. And regarding Elijah, the verse states in Malachi chapter 3 and verse 23, behold, I send to you Elijah the prophet, and he will come and comfort you, as the verse continues, and he will return the hearts of the fathers to the children. Our every action in this world has meaning and accomplishes something lasting. Thus, our actions and the intention behind them is so important. All of the divine mitzvot are divine advice, channels of light. Through this commandment, because he said so, Hashem is providing us with a toolkit to remain sensitive, open, aware, and caring to all creation, to be reminded of the delicate ecosystem of all creation. And the mother bird's cry becomes a conduit for the anguish of the whole world. Shalom, dear friends. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it so very much. It's only your support that enables Jerusalem Lights to continue its outreach of Torah for everyone.